right, hi guys. We are on video 12 of our series. I have no idea how many videos we'll wind up with, but I've been numbering them, and we will most likely be numbering them in the comments and the subject line of the videos when we finally upload any of these. It's still October 3rd. We are still in the car.
Still driving. Haven't made it to our destination
Not
yet.
this time. Tucky, the big brown dog, is still in the back, passed out. When we reach our destination, I might just film a little bit of it just to show all of you what we do and what a 3-hour drive gets us, but we'll see. So we are talking about Lisa's paranormal experiences, thoughts, ideas. We drive a lot. We have dogs. We compete with our dogs. We also drive far for work. And we have these conversations while we're driving about anything that pops into our brain, which is normal when you're in the car for a long time. And a lot of times it'll circle back to Lisa and her family and her friends that investigate paranormal experiences. This moment in time, the reason why we started taping these is during this trip back and forth, we cut through Gettysburg. We're located in Pennsylvania currently. And that, of course, Gettysburg being one of the major East Coast spots, started a conversation. And I realized how very interesting our subject matter was to those who also are interested in the paranormal, but then also how educational it is in a sharing of thoughts. I am interested in things paranormal. I have not studied them. I have not partaken in any of them. So Lisa, who has, when we get into these conversations and she shares her experiences, I'm filled with questions. And I know there are questions that she will not be able to answer because, as those of you watching these videos know, paranormal investigation, the world of paranormal activity is not a precise anything. It's a collective gathering of information by those who have either experienced it, learned about it, have loved ones that have experienced it, investigate it. And I find it very interesting. It's making me think of my own things. And as questions come up, I ask her. This is, again, all opinion. Lisa does not have a degree. Many investigators or many of those who study paranormal activity, it's self-taught. It's learning and reading and watching the information put out by others, and then also collecting their own experiences. So as you watch these videos, if you're still with us, feel free to comment. Please keep it civil, as always, because we understand that Lisa's thoughts and ideas, my comments and thoughts and ideas, will not sync with some of the thoughts and the ideas of you. Whether it's personal experiences, whether it's your firm beliefs, whether it's religiously based or not religiously based, we do understand that. And so as you're watching these, if something comes to mind that you truly feel passionate about, feel free to reach out and either question it, comment it, or ask our opinions, because again, that's how knowledge grows, the sharing of ideas. So at this point in our video stream, I have questioned the root of Lisa's passion, but I don't know if passion's the right word, her curiosity and her interest. What started it all? And we went over her young life, how she was raised, the open setting of her family. We also started talking about, for a while, as she grew, she really was not as interested in it anymore. She had dabbled in a few things as some teenagers or young adults do as they're exploring different things. And then it sort of faded into the background. And then in her mid-20s, she started exploring abandoned urban buildings for non-paranormal reasons. At the time, I would say mid-80s. What era was this?
Yeah, 80s, 90s.
Yeah, mid to late 80s. It was a thing. If anybody can remember,
I know it was urban something.
I know. If anyone can remember,
urban legends or urban.
No. And I do remember it having a name where people were fascinated with the abandoned. Mm-hmm. It was abandoned malls, abandoned hospitals, abandoned sanatoriums or mental hospitals, abandoned schools, and it had no purpose other than people were fascinated by
how they were left.
Right, how they were left, what was left behind, and I remember seeing it. There were pictures, videos of people walking through and basically showing like an abandoned inside mall, not a strip mall, where it was completely cleaned out except for one maybe anchor store that looked like people had just boxed everything up in a hurry and there's paper everywhere. It was a thing. And I guess it was the investigation of urban decay, maybe. Something like that. And so in her mid-20s, she was involved in that, non-paranormal anything. And she, either alone or with one or two others, but in this instance, that reignited her ideas or her interest in the paranormal. She was in a hospital that specialized in treating mental patients. And I am sure I am referring to all of this in the wrong way, but back in the days, right, back in the days of early medical thought, we all know and we've all learned that anyone could be locked away, whether it was for actual physical chemical imbalances or it was simply because you were a difficult human being and your family didn't know what to do with you. And so there were these institutions, mental institutions, there you go, that would basically lock you up, throw away the key. They'd either medicate you, they'd use you for medical trials, they would lobotomize you, they didn't know what to do with the fringes of society. And sometimes it was as easy as being homosexual, or a woman going through menopause, or a man
a strong opinionated woman.
A strong opinionated woman.
Who didn't want to wear dresses.
Exactly, they didn't know what to do. And, men...
young women who got pregnant out of wedlock.
Right. And there were institutions. But surrounding institutions, of course, is a lot of pain. It's a lot of negative energy. It's a lot of fear. And so in our last video, Lisa was sharing with us how her interest in the paranormal was reignited as an adult. No longer a child being raised by family or just learning through what she was taught. She started being interested on her own. And it was the moment that she was in one of these buildings and she was taping and taking pictures, and she could not explain the internal feeling that was coming over her. There was no connection and stop me if I've got this incorrectly, but you did not say that you ran up against an entity. There was no touching or fluttering of hair or a door moving. It was completely a mental state of something was there that was affecting you greatly. And so that is where we ended the last video, and I am highly interested in this because this is a part of Lisa's life I don't quite know. But also it leads into those who are greatly interested in this field may have had very similar experiences. And so I think it's worth sharing. So that being said, that was an instance in time. So you experienced it, and where the video ended was you leaving the building.
Yeah, I got the hell out of Dodge.
Got the hell out of Dodge. So where did you go from there? Not that day.
Right.
I meant
right.
in your life. What followed after?
So after that, when I left, of course, there was a lot of thinking on the way home. I was by myself. Again, didn't have someone to interact with and bounce things off of. Like, oh my God, did you feel that too? So it was a lot of self-questioning, self-doubt. Just convincing myself that I freaked myself out. So when I got home, I immediately jumped into, I gotta know more. So I researched the building that I was in to find out more about what it was about, and found things that were, they had things on patients and everything. It just covered everything about this building. So I was like into it. I mean, I had notebooks full of notes of stuff I was taking. And I went to visit my mom. And I told her about it. Because she said, well, what are you up to this weekend? And I told her, I'm like, I think I'm going to go back to this place I went to. And she was like, well, where is it? And I told her, and she was like, oh yeah, I remember when that place was open. Yeah, it was pretty weird. That was a, weird place. It was a weird institution. What are you going there for? It's not open anymore, is it? And I was like, no, it's abandoned. It's shut down. I don't know if the government, state owns it or whatever, but it was shut down. They haven't figured out what they're doing with it. And I told her, I was like, I was in there, doing this thing, urban archaeo, checking out everything. And, of course, mother being mother, why are you going into places you're not supposed to be? Do you want to go to jail? And then was like, then got into the, well, what did you see? Curiosity factor. So then I started telling her about my experience in this institution. How all of a sudden it came over me with the overwhelming sadness, anger, loneliness, fear, aggression, these things that came over in different parts. And she was like, well, yeah, that's probably the ghost or spirits of the people who were there that died. And at that point, up until that point, I never connected the two, that people died there. Because to me, it was an institution. It was like, because nowadays, and back then, we treated mental health differently. You could get checked in, or you could get put into a mental institution or a hospital. And then they will work with you and find out what medications you need, and then you're set free. I didn't realize, or it didn't click, that people were put here literally dumped.
For the rest of their lives.
Their families would just show up on the doorstep with a suitcase and their kid and go, take it. I don't know what to do with it. And they never saw them again. They just totally wiped them out of their lives. So it didn't occur to me that people died. And I was like, oh, wait, what do you mean people died? And then she started telling me, because this place was active during her lifetime. And she was like, they did, they used them as lab subjects, basically.
To test new medicines.
And they did lobotomies on these people where they removed parts of their brain because maybe they didn't like what, they were saying or doing. Aggressive people who actually had some type of, imbalance or mental disability, that were violent. They would take out their teeth. And a lot of these things they would do without anesthetic, without any pain medication. They would just yank them out so they could bite them. They would leave them alone for days and days and days and days in their own filth. They didn't have enough staff to care for everybody. And she started telling me these things that weren't in the things I've seen. So then that opened up a whole nother doorway. And I went back that night home, researching stuff again on this, and I found those things that are true. And again, it went into the treatment of the patients and how many of them had died. And come to find out, it had been over a couple hundred human lives were lost and buried like in a potter's field on that location in unmarked graves.
Yeah, they were just, it was a mass grave.
It was a mass grave, yeah. And that really hit me, you know, and I was like, whoa, I guess that place could be haunted. So then I was like, okay, all right, I'm going to go back, but this time I'm prepared. So I packed up my backpack with my camcorder, my camera, because then we didn't have cool cell phones like now. So I had a camera, flashlights, digital tape recorder, things like that, you know. And I'm going to give you a little insight here. People question, how did I get away with this? Going into places that are locked down, have no trespassing signs on them, and stuff like that. Interesting story. My career, or my job for the past 38 years has been in restoration. So I would go into many places like this and look for lead, asbestos, mold, water damage, and things like that. And I had, you know, a piece of paper like a license, so to speak, that I would put on my dashboard when I was at certain places, you know, to let people know I'm here on business. And I had cones to put around my car and stuff like that, and my work bag and everything. So we had a go bag. So I thought, hey, this is better than my backpack, because it had the name of the company on it and what it was.
But when was the last time you no longer do this, correct?
Oh, going down no.
No, okay.
No. During this period
we would
of
just
time.
like to clarify.
I mean, yeah, I do, and I have been into, since then, been into abandoned buildings.
But
I get permission. I get written permission from the owner.
So this was 30 years ago. Okay.
Right. So
we're just going to
because
clarify.
I was born in broad daylight.
Right.
So my go bag for work was a duffel bag. So then I realized I could fit my tripod in here. I could fit all kinds. So I just loaded it down with stuff, and then I had my notepad thing,
clipboard,
ledger, whatever you want to call it, yeah, with me. And I had cards with my name on it saying who I was, because I was an inspector.
But you know what, if you think about this, yes, this was a dishonest way of getting in, but because you were freely handing out business cards, you were not damaging, removing.
Right. And that was part of it.
You may have been trespassing.
And that was part of it, because this was a big location. Like I said, it was acres and acres and buildings and buildings. There was more than one building. There was like...
No, it's a normal hospital.
Yeah, it was like
campus.
13 buildings. Yeah. And so that the next visit there, when I had this grand idea, I'm like, you know, because the first time I went, I saw absolutely nobody. Not a car, nothing on the property. Okay, go. I made no attempt to hide my vehicle. So the second time I went, did the same thing. Drove in on the road. There was no chain or anything, or gate. It was open, but it was clearly stated, no trespassing. Caution tape, stuff like that. So I literally pulled in front of the main entrance to this thing, which was one of the buildings I didn't go into originally because I figured I'd get caught. Pulled my vehicle, my personal vehicle, in front of this building, parked it, put my cones out around the car, and proceed into the building. Put my little note on the dashboard, proceed into the building. I'm in the building for about half hour or so, and then I hear something, and I'm like, oh, do you hear that? Because I had my tripod set up with my camcorder as I'm going down this long hallway, taking pictures and stuff, and I was like, I thought I heard something. I thought I heard a voice. So I turned around, I'm listening, and I hear somebody going, "Hello!"
Ah!
So I quickly turn off the camcorder, and I run down the steps, and there's a security guard there with his little car with his little light on top. And he's like, "Hey, how are you?" And I'm like, "Oh, hi, how are you? I'm Lisa." Introduce myself, shake his hand, pull out a card, bam! And I'm like, so I'm here testing the building for, asbestos and lead and stuff like that, because of the environmental concerns if they do knock this down, blah, blah, blah. Made this whole spiel that I had to use for work with this security guard. And he was like, "Oh, okay, cool. Be careful. And make sure you're wearing one of those masks." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah." And I pull a respirator out of my go bag for work, and I'm like, "I have one. Double filter, Darth Vader mask." He's like, "Oh, okay, cool. All right, well, be safe. And, I'll be making rounds every hour or so. You may see me, but I don't come into the building often. Just wanted to see who was in here. Is there anyone else with you?" I'm like, "No." He asked if he could see what was in my bag, and I opened it up. He made sure I didn't have spray paint or anything to deface the building, which I didn't. And he was like, "All right then, be careful. It tends to get dark around such and such time, blah, blah, blah." And he left me there to check out all of it. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. So I went in on a paranormal investigation alone. Don't do that. Do not open that door. Always have someone with you. Because again, this was a different part of the hospital that I'd never been in. It was the main building, which of course was more organized and friendlier to the eye, more appealing than the rest of the buildings. Yeah, because it's what
the public saw
when they came in. They didn't see when they took them to Building 13. Or this one or that one where the girls were and the boys were and the this and the that. They didn't see the beds with the shackles on them.
Yeah.
They didn't see, those things. They saw a normal hospital ward. So I did my little investigation, and I tried to be the cool investigator with my little.
What did you do?
Actually,
hold on. Oh my goodness, we're going. Okay, I am going to start a new video. We're 22 minutes in. Your very first solo investigation while you perhaps trespass in an institution. Gotcha. Okay. Well, I'll be back. All right. Drink your Mountain Dew there, dear.